Nate, I bet you'll agree with that.
Not so much. I'm going with the Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to respect the division champs, and I get it. Everybody's looking at Big Ben and saying, well, Nate, I know. They started off so good, and they were so dynamic on offense and defense, and Big Ben had the 22 touchdowns in those first 9 games. Yeah, and then the offense pretty much started to stub their toe week after week. And to be honest, defenses they face started to figure it out that Big Ben wasn't pushing the ball downfield. Okay, but that's one side of the ball. Let me tell you why that offense will be better. I do feel like Juju Smith-Schuster almost leaving and coming back, he's going to be more motivated than ever. The rest of the wide receivers going through that Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers can't catch phase, they're going to be more motivated than ever. And then Big Ben. You know, it's one thing for a team to say, we love you, Big Ben, you're a legend. But it's another thing for them to say, we need you to take a pay cut, because that means the end is near. So if Big Ben is going to take a pay cut, that means that he understands he's going to have to be much better this season. Because if he's not, I guarantee that as much as they love him, it's time to move on if you're going to struggle in the later parts of the season. Now, I just mentioned everything about that offense, which you can criticize and tear up because at the end of the season, they did fall off, and it was horrible. But that defense was fantastic. I don't care what you want to argue. They're third in the NFL. They had 27 takeaways. This defense was fantastic. So when you're looking at this offense and defense and Mike Tomlin, who's never had a losing season with Big Ben at starting position, I think you still have to respect them until they completely fall apart and hand this division away.
But are they better than the Browns? Because the Browns beat the snot out of them in a playoff game. Are they better than them right now? Are they the lead dogs? If you're to pick the winner right now, you'd say they are the favorites in the division?
Yeah, because in order to be the best in your division, you have to be regular season good. And Big Ben and the Steelers, they're regular season good. They haven't proven to be postseason great since he won that Super Bowl. The Browns were really good last year, but they also had moments where they had the world in the palm of their hands. And that youth and inexperience, maybe it's players and coaches, and they dealt with some stuff at the end of the season with COVID.
Sure.
But still, they didn't prove that they can hold on to that gem, which is the division title.
They added a piece in Clowney. I mean, the Steelers lost a piece in Bud Dupree. I think people are not considering will be a huge change for them this year.
Yeah, Bud Dupree's a great player. He's with the Titans now. I'm going to go, in wrestling terms, it's the third man in, right? I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think the Ravens still have more to do, and I know that it feels like, oh, the same old Ravens, here we go with that running offense, and it's going to be what we do. We lose in the first round of the playoffs. I feel like the Ravens keep on reloading, and their cupboard keeps on getting restocked. We talk about the Ravens, and they lost this guy, they lost this guy. Last year in the draft, they cleaned up again. And, like, they have just been nailing draft after draft after draft. I look at Patrick Queen. He might be one of the best young linebackers in the league this year. J.K. Dobbins is going to be outstanding in year 2. Duvernay started putting it out together at the end. And that last one right there, Matabuki, all right, he's the defensive tackle that they are raving about in Baltimore, that he showed up and at the end of the season was one of the most immovable objects in the league. And that was last year's draft. This year's draft, they have a whole bunch of draft picks again. They feel confident that this is not a team that has hit its ceiling. And I look at the Browns and the Ravens as the 2 lead dogs in this thing. I'm sorry, Nate. I got to go Browns, Ravens as 1 and 2. And I would say the Ravens are the lead dogs. And it's that guy, Eric DeCosta. How they, you know, Ozzie Newsome leaves, hands the reins over to DeCosta. They've hit home runs in the draft every single year. And I have full confidence that this team's not going anywhere. Like the Steelers, they might fall off a cliff this year. I honestly feel that way. Like they're putting it back together, and it's, all right, Juju 1 more year, and Ben 1 more year, and we lost Bud Dupree, but Devin Bush gets back, so maybe that compensates. The Ravens, I feel like they're ascending. So I'm going to say the Ravens are the lead dog.
Ravens also dealt with a lot last year.
They did.
They lost 2. They lost Judon. They lost Ngakoue. They don't have the leadership of
quarterback.
Ingram. It's interesting.
COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, they ran into Pittsburgh with their third, fourth quarterback.
That was crazy.
They almost won the game, right? I mean, that was when we saw the Steelers just kind of starting to trip all over themselves.
Yeah.
I think when you look at this division, though, it's got to be consistency. And I'm going to piggyback with you on the Steelers. You're the champs until you're dethroned. They're still the alpha dog. And I'm not ready to start playing Baja Men on repeat just yet because we've seen that movie before and heard that song before from the Browns. This time of year, the all-hype team never seems to work out for Cleveland. So I think that it's okay for them to not be the lead dog right now and let them work their way up. Yes, they thumped Pittsburgh in the playoffs. But when you look at the Steelers' defense, even without Bud Dupree, losing him, absolutely a big loss. They have the best defensive player in this entire division in T.J. Watt. And I think when you look at what this defense has done the last 2 years, more sacks and more takeaways than any other defense in the league, Keith Butler doesn't get enough credit for what he does, and it's just every single year they find new stars. You know, Devin Bush went down with an ACL injury last year. Him coming back is going to help this defense out immensely in the middle, and I still think that's the best defense in this division. Their ability to change games because of the sacks and the forced fumbles and the turnovers, I think that makes any offense better.
We do flips, right, on the network when it's Clowney because he's first overall pick and he's this superstar name. But, like, does Jadeveon Clowney do anything for you, Sean? You're an offensive. Like, are you scared of like, now we're like, oh, the Browns got Clowney, and on Twitter it trends. But what is Jadeveon Clowney in 2021? I don't know. What do you think watching him play?
And look, he's hot and cold, but, like, yeah, I know we go to the pedigree and where he was drafted, but is this his fourth team now? Third team? Fourth team? Yeah. I mean, something's up there. Jadeveon Clowney, when he's healthy, he is absolutely a game wrecker. Yeah, and you've got to figure out, what are we going to do? Are we going to run at him or are we going to run away from him? How are we handling him on third down? He's absolutely a headache and a monster. But he's just been inconsistent. He's been banged up, too, and it's not always his fault. But guess what? He was injured in college, too, and it's just something that continues to plague him. But he's just as dominant against the run as he is the pass. He's just, it's hot and cold. You don't know which Clowney's going to show up.
I think it's like they were already one of the better fronts in the NFL without him, so they add him, and even if you have low expectations for Clowney, it still improves their team. And you look at what was the issue, like they had a really maligned secondary. They got John Johnson, Troy Hill from the Rams. They're the only, like what I learned from this little fun exercise we just did is that there isn't a favorite. There's no front runner. We could argue about this, and you guys are all making really compelling arguments. So me, if I break it down as simply as possible and distill it and deconstruct it, it is the Browns because they're the only team of the ones you guys are mentioning that made, not with the draft yet, I mean, if we're talking today, they're the only team that really made improvements. Every other team you guys are talking about lost big key players.
Yeah. For sure.
I'm just looking at it that simply. It's probably too simple.
No, and everyone would point to the Browns as the ascending team and the popular pick. So I think it's right. The Clowney thing it's like I almost want to trust Andrew Berry, the GM, because they've made so many smart moves that they're not just doing it for the home run. This isn't the old Browns or what Washington used to do, where just take a big swing, we got a big name. Look, everybody, fans, hey, like.
Listen.
They thought this over, and they're bringing in Clowney, and you put him against Myles Garrett on the other side. Maybe it unleashes all the expectations we've had for Jadeveon Clowney.
The Browns are the Brooklyn Nets of the NFL.
Talk about it.
Brooklyn Nets for a while. They haven't been the team you even peaked at. And then all of a sudden, they land Kyrie, KD, Harden, Aldridge, Blake. Browns have been stacking up superstars for the last 5 years. But I'll end it with this. I don't care how many players the Nets have if they don't beat the Lakers. I don't care how many players the Browns have if they can't get out of their own division and win a Super Bowl. It's all for naught unless you have that postseason success. Last year was a great year for the Browns. Now let's see if they can take it to the next step.
At GMFE with your thoughts. We've got a couple fun questions for you to answer. We'll get your answers scrolling through the show, I promise. And during the 2021 NFL Draft, we'd love to be interactive. You can join players, teams, fans from around the country. It is the NFL Draft-a-thon, a 2-day live stream and virtual fundraiser focusing on real issues facing our hardest-hit communities. And it all starts April 29th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can visit NFL.com/draftathon to watch. You can find out how you can